Introduction: I transmigrated into a plagiarized novel. I am not a real rich girl, nor am I a fake rich girl. I am just the owner of a snack stall at the village gate. The female supporting character in this plagiarized novel is naturally evil. The purpose of her existence is to be slapped in the face by the female lead. But I saw with my own eyes that child being pushed down by her brothers, barking like a dog. All for a piece of radish to fill her stomach. This village is really poor. So poor that the little girl doesn't deserve to eat. She can only gnaw on some hard wild fruits until her teeth fall out, and live on water. She has been hanging around here for a few days. On that dark and thin face, her big round eyes are sparkling, wanting to steal. I have been in this story for more than a month. There are almost always children like this who come to lie in wait. But this time, I choose to ignore it. I am dozing off, fanning myself with the cypress fan, and from the gap I see her tiptoeing in. Quickly steal a bag of candied tangerine peel. Then she hurriedly runs away, falling down on the way, then standing up and limping away. She should be the little princess who is well-fed and well-fed, the eldest daughter of the Tam Corporation. But even if her biological parents find her in the future, she is still hated by everyone because she often causes trouble for others. She is a green tea girl, a scheming prostitute, a white lotus flower. If thoughts and emotions really exist in a story, then the female supporting character in this plagiarized novel, all of her shortcomings are exaggerated to the extreme. I hate plagiarism, and I also hate her evil heart after growing up. The first time she came to steal something, I caught her. Her father broke one of her fingers right in front of me. The pain was so intense that her heart and lungs were paralyzed, but she still tried to protect the half-piece of mung bean cake in her arms. Her father saw this and coldly stomped on the cake with his foot. Before leaving, I saw her staring blankly at the crumbs scattered on the ground. Then, she trembled and lowered her head, scooping up the crumbs and dirt and putting them all into her mouth. The emotions that surged up made me feel like I was suffocating. What is there called inborn cruelty? The more greedy and stupid the author wrote her to be, the more miserable and difficult her days in the countryside would be. Because of suffering, selfishness was born. The words on paper were too few. Turned into real life, everything must have a cause before there is an effect. I suddenly realized, turning a little girl who had to live 17 years of suffering to be the stepping stone for another little girl to become a shining halo, this logic made people shudder with disgust. So later when she came to steal again, I ignored her. After all, the number of times was not much, just a few coins. I originally thought that was all she and I had. One evening, I was just about to close the door and go to sleep when I suddenly saw a dark figure in the distance. The target was very precise, going straight to the money box. I hid in the inner room, clutching the dagger in my hand, so nervous that cold sweat broke out. I was a girl, and I lived alone, so I decided to take my life instead of my property. The thief took the money and left. I was about to breathe a sigh of relief. A loud scream made my hands tremble in fear, followed immediately by the girl's shrill scream. I rushed out. Under the cool moonlight, the man was grabbing the little girl's hair, slapping her repeatedly in the face. There was a deep tooth mark on his arm, which was bleeding profusely. I got angry, grabbed the hoe behind the door and rushed over. The commotion alerted the dogs in the village, making the night no longer quiet. The thief was scared away. I turned on the light. The little girl who had been bravely fighting the thief suddenly fell flat on the ground. I panicked. "What's wrong with you? Where are you injured?" I carried the little girl into the room. Her entire face was red and swollen. Her original appearance was no longer visible. Looking at her half-opened eyes, I got impatient. "Wake up, tell me where you feel uncomfortable?" She weakly opened her eyes, hungry. I helped her sit up and got her some food. Nana ate ravenously. The food was so hot that I couldn't even hold the bowl, but she didn't stop. After finishing a big bowl of rice, I cooked her 2 eggs. "How long have you been hungry?" "Almost 4 days," she said in a small voice. I furrowed my brows. What happened? The story was that a few days ago, she was assigned to take care of her younger brother, and accidentally let him fall into the river. Her younger brother was fine, but her father beat her up. I noticed her teary eyes. "Did your younger brother really fall down because he was too playful?" Chen Na became Shinji Shui at the age of 17. Because her younger brother had always been attracted to the fake rich girl. So she lied and said that her younger brother had been drinking at the bar and fell down the stairs. He died on the spot. But 7-year-old Chen Na obviously didn't have such great acting skills. She was so scared that she choked on the egg soup, her eyes filled with tears. I didn't push him, it's just that I just stood there and watched," I continued. The little girl cried, "It's because he bullies me all day long, it's because of me that he breaks things, I hate him." I thought about how the little girl would become a selfish and cruel person in the future and my body went cold. "Then why are you here?" She sobbed and said, "I was so hungry, so. But I saw, there was a man coming in. I was afraid you would be in danger, so I hid at the door." I was stunned. "You were afraid I would be in danger?" What could she, a little girl, do? Shouldn't she run far away at times like this? Her eyes were red, and she said softly, "I don't want anything to happen to you." It turned out that she had known long ago that I would let her come to my place to steal. My heart quietly warmed up again. I suddenly realized that no matter who she was in the future, right now, she was just Chinyaya, just a 7-year-old girl. Even if she still had some bad thoughts, she was still a child who always thought of others. I told the little girl, if her parents don't let her eat in the future, she can come to me. Without waiting for her to be happy, I stretched out 3 fingers. "We promise each other 3 things. My relationship with you cannot be told to others. Food is not free. You have to help me with my work. Finally, absolutely, absolutely do not lie to me." Under the warm yellow light, the skinny little girl, her hair disheveled, her hands and feet dirty, solemnly nodded, the light in her eyes dancing. Nana would come to me every 3 days. She took care of almost all the work in my shop. But just when I was getting used to it, she suddenly disappeared. I felt uneasy and went to look for her. Poor Na too, she was beaten up by her father. Tisk, it turned out that Na was already old enough to go to school. She originally didn't know anything about the concept of going to school. But because I had free time, I asked her to tell me stories, to tell me some interesting stories from my school days. I didn't expect this girl to take it to heart. Just when I was worried about how to save her, she came to me with a wad of money. Her face was bruised and she looked miserable. She hurriedly said, "Let's go quickly. I have 20,000. Enough for you to open a shop in the city. You can also read books." "Where did you get the money?" I stared at her. "Don't lie." After much questioning, she finally confessed that she stole it. "Don't you know that this is the money Aunt Wang saved for her son's surgery?" I scolded her coldly, and she was scared and stunned. This was the first time I had spoken harshly to her. I seemed to see her selfish and deceitful appearance when she grew up. Just because she wanted to compete with the female lead, she cut off her own path to life. "What did I tell you?" Nana was frightened and burst into tears. Being a person must be upright and honest, and doing things must be without shame. I repeated these words over and over again. Her father was a drunkard, her mother was famous for being a shrew, and her brothers were all scoundrels and gangsters. The little girl was a wild duck, a damn thing. She was a place for her parents to vent their anger, a toy for her brothers. Since she was little, she had to learn to read other people's moods, crawl under her brother's crotch, learn to bark like a dog. When she grew up a little, she got used to pretending, accepting nothing but benefits. This world has never been gentle with her. So she naturally became a standard female villain. I don't know how much I can do. But when I look at her, she looks like an object being kicked back and forth. I can't help but feel. She should grow a really sharp thorn, to fight back against this world of suffering. Nah, return the money. I felt a little regretful for speaking harshly to her, thinking about how to compensate her. I'm sorry, I was wrong, can you not be angry with me? The little girl knelt down in front of me with a bang, like a dog abandoned by its owner, her eyes red with anger, begging me not to leave. I really know I was wrong, please, don't chase me away. She had been with me for more than half a year, and it was hard to gain a little bit of meat. This time, she had turned back to her previous skinny appearance. Like a body in the dark, no matter how hard she struggled, there was no result, she could only sink with it. Looking at her desperate expression, I took a deep breath and finally made up my mind. All those plagiarism bullshits, get lost. I reached out to her, I wanted to be her fishing rod, pulling her out of the mud. I would use the snack shop to exchange for the right to raise her. After all, girls in this village only had one meaning, and that was to exchange for dowry money after they grew up. The procedure was done very quickly, and by the time I carried big and small bags out of the village, Nana still hadn't had time to react. We're really leaving? The little girl widened her eyes in disbelief. From now on, I'll be your only relative? I smiled and patted her face. Don't be too happy too soon, I don't have a job now, and I don't have a penny in my pocket. It's okay, she hurriedly said, when I grow up, I'll go earn money, I'll earn a lot of money for you to spend. On the dusty village road, she hugged me and cried. I didn't have a degree, I could only do some dirty and hard work to earn money. I sent Nana to school, and gave her a nice-sounding name, Tran Nguyen. I finally opened a shop. Every day, she would bring her classmates to visit. My sister's steamed buns are super delicious, she said with a smile. Tran Nguyen, so your family is so poor? A boy looked at my roadside shop with disdain. No wonder your shoes are so worn out. Tran Nguyen and I were shocked at the same time. I looked down and sure enough, I saw that her shoes were worn out and about to fall apart. Tran Nguyen was annoyed and blushed. What does it have to do with you? Get out of here, you're not welcome here. I don't want to come in, who knows if I'll get diarrhea. My teeth started to itch. Tran Nguyen was even more agitated than me, throwing her bag and chasing after him, wanting to beat him up. At night, I saw Tran Nguyen secretly polishing her shoes, then gluing them back together with 502 glue. I felt uncomfortable, so the next day I went to buy her a new pair of shoes. But she turned around and gave the new shoes to someone else. Tomorrow is my friend's birthday, I won't be back for dinner. I kept quiet, watching her carefully put her shoes in her bag, and change into her best clothes. Busy making money all day, I had underestimated my teenage psychology. But seeing the new shoes I gritted my teeth to buy for her were used by her to save face, I felt extremely disappointed. The next day, after she went out, I had a fever. After cleaning the shop in a daze, I didn't even have the strength to get up and take medicine. What is Tran Nguyen doing now? I heard that your classmate's father is a contractor. You must be in a nice warm room right now, eating sweet and fragrant cake, playing with your classmates. My body is getting more and more uncomfortable, my stomach is empty. I also want to eat cake, I have almost forgotten the taste of it. In my half-awake and half-asleep state, I don't know if it's because my obsession is too strong, but I actually smelled the cake. I tried to open my eyes, Tran Nguyen's worried face kept shaking back and forth. Sis, can you move? Shall we go to the hospital? Why are you back? I glanced at my watch, it was still early. I called you but no one answered. I was worried so I came back. Seeing that I was persistent in not going to the hospital, Chen Yan had no choice but to go find medicine for me. Sis, this. The little girl held up a piece of cake in front of me like a precious offering. Everyone says this is delicious, but it's a bit sweet, sis, try it. I looked at the cake in a daze. It was still intact, she hadn't eaten a single piece. I'll tell you some good news. The little girl excitedly waved her arms and legs. Xuan'an's father has agreed that we will provide breakfast at the construction site in the future. I originally wanted to give you a surprise, but I couldn't call you. She was embarrassed. Xuan'an cut me a piece of cake so I can go home first. The little girl thought that I had never eaten cake before. In front of so many friends, she wasn't afraid of being laughed at. On the way, she only cared about protecting the cake, while she braved the cold wind on her way home. Sister, Xuan'an helped me talk to his father a lot. You told me that as a person, you have to know how to repay a favor, so I gave him a new pair of shoes. That pair of shoes had been displayed in the glass cabinet for several months. Every time Chen Yan passed by on her way home from school, she had to stop and stare for a long time. My eyes immediately turned red. Just now, my mind was in a daze. I wondered if it was worth it. Can I change the fate in the book? Can I become Mr. Donghua? Mr. Donghua, the general idea is to save things and get revenge. After saving the wolf, it wants to eat you. If you want to read carefully, you can search on Google. I choked, scooped up a big piece of cake. My toothache, I won't eat it. The little girl tilted her head to avoid it, using an excuse that I knew I had just thought of. Even if I have a toothache, I have to endure it. I glared at her with red eyes, roughly shoving the spoon into her mouth. She was arrogant, selfish, vain, always knowing how to fight, even causing her own younger brother to die, stealing the female lead's fiancé. The exaggerated descriptions in the book disappeared one by one. Only the piece of cake left in this room of less than 10 square meters was real. She was arrogant, selfish, vain, always knowing how to fight, even causing her own younger brother to die, stealing the female lead's fiancé. The exaggerated descriptions in the books disappeared one by one. Only the cake in this room of less than 10 square meters was real. Chen Yan went to high school. His studies were average, not outstanding, but getting into a normal university was no problem. The days passed peacefully and happily. I almost forgot that I was living in a book. I brought a birthday cake to the school gate to pick up Chen Yan. She was about to smile at me when a car interrupted. A person who looked like a secretary happily looked at Chen Yan. Miss, I finally found you. At the school gate, people were coming and going. Chen Yan was confused and didn't understand anything, instinctively taking a step back. The secretary said, actually, you are Xin Zhixue, the daughter of the chairman of the Xin group. Because you were mistaken when you were young, you were wandering around outside. We spent a lot of effort to find you here, miss. Come home with me. This news was like a bolt from the blue. Chen Yan was surprised, suspicious, and a little panicked. I saw everything, mentally prepared myself before walking over and grabbing her hand. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Chen Yan and I went to the Xin family's mansion together, and she held on to my hand the whole way. The Xin family had received the news early and were already waiting in the living room. Chen Yan and Madame Xin were like a mold, proving everything. My Zhixue, you've suffered. Madame Xin hugged her, sobbing. Chen Yan was flustered when she was hugged, and looked at me with pleading eyes. My mind was still in the clouds, trying to remember the plot that had faded from my memory. If she's back, then I'll leave today. A female voice rang out from upstairs, attracting everyone's attention. I also raised my head, facing the female lead for the first time. Xin Zhixue looked down from above, her demeanor free and elegant. I don't know if it was an illusion, but I suddenly heard a soft voice, "Host is so cool." Me? Shin Shishua stepped down and faced Chen Yan. "The real owner is back, the fake one is me. I will leave immediately. From now on, water will not interfere with water. Your parents, this identity of a noble lady will be returned to you. I have thrown away all the things in the room, I will return the room to you." After saying that, she turned around and left. I was momentarily stunned, then saw her tremble slightly at a distance of 3 meters from the door. "Wait a minute." At the same time, Chen Yan also spoke, "I haven't clarified the situation yet, you can leave first." Shin Shishua paused for a moment before turning around and gritting her teeth, saying, "Okay, very good." The gentle voice appeared again, "Host, you must complete the conflict in the Shin family plot, otherwise you will be electrocuted again. I know the host hates these things, wanting to use a sharp knife to cut through the tangled weeds, but there is no other way. Host, don't be afraid, it's fun for us to abuse the scum together." I only heard the sound of the system, I didn't hear Shin Shishua's thoughts. "Oh right, this is a system genre story. Originally Shin Shishua was killed because she couldn't fight against the evil female supporting character. Now Shin Shishua has a system, rewriting the plot, slapping the scum in the face and stepping to the pinnacle of life. A familiar, refreshing novel." Shin Shishua smiled on the outside but didn't smile on the inside and said, "Do you have to be like this?" Chen Yan didn't understand, but I did. Shin Shishua thought that Chen Yan had some bad intentions in keeping her. The 3 of us had different moods, but Madame Shin noticed the cake in my hand. Shi Shui likes to eat cake? It just so happens that Mother Rong made a 1,000-layer cheesecake today, quickly bring it out. Chen Yan didn't react, but Shin Shishua's eyes flickered. My heart skipped a beat. "Madam Shin, who are you talking about?" "Host, do your best. The green tea girl is dead, let's see how the host will handle her. I immediately guessed that Shin Shui had already started the plot. Although I didn't understand why the current female lead was different from the female lead in the novel, it didn't affect my anger. Madam Shin's eyebrows furrowed, and sure enough, she said, "Don't be naughty, you just came back, you made me give in to you a little." Very good, there must be a villain in order for the female lead to have a playground. If we went the normal route, Chen Yan would have to act like a pitiful green tea girl right now, and then the female lead would be angry and spit blood. Unfortunately, I don't eat. Chen Yan's face was cold as he looked at me standing in the corner. They were all gathered together, each of them neatly dressed. As for me, I had not changed my clothes in a hurry to get the cake, and my whole body was covered in the smell of smoke, which did not fit in with the luxurious villa at all. Mother Rong cut the 1,000-layer cake for everyone present, except me. Chen Yan took 2 steps and held me tightly, picking up the ordinary cake box. "I like to eat this. Besides, it's late now, I have to go home to celebrate my birthday, let's talk about this another day." Madam Shin saw that we wanted to leave and became impatient. "This silly child, this is your house, today is not your birthday." Chen Yan didn't care, and pulled me away. Shin Shishua also stood up, intentionally and accidentally dropping the 1,000-layer cake. It hit Mother Rong. "Host, you still like to defend the weak like this. Reluctantly, it can be considered a conflict." "I don't know either, let me see what kind of love tricks this side chick is going to do again." Chen Yan pulled me away, and I couldn't hear the rest. When we got home, Chen Yan was still upset. I lit a candle and told her to make a wish. "Sister, what should I do?" she said gloomily. Such a thing was too sudden, no matter who it was, they wouldn't be able to calm down. I understood, no matter what you decide, I will support you. Chen Yan stared blankly at the fire. 10 years ago today, you took me out of Shangshui village. From that day on, I swore that you were my only relative in the world. Seeing her dazed and not knowing what to do, I patted her head. If you can't think of anything, then don't think about it. The boat will naturally straighten when it reaches the bridgehead. It smells so good. Suddenly, someone pushed the glass door and entered. In recent years, thanks to Father Teet and Anne's blessings, I have also opened a small restaurant, and business has been doing well. But the person who came surprised me. It was Shin Shishue. She naturally sat down and said anxiously, "Blow it out quickly. If the wax drips onto the cake, how can we eat it?" Chen Yan's eyes widened. "What are you doing here?" Shin Shishue, "I told you, I threw everything away. Do you want me to sleep on the floor?" "Stop talking, quickly blow it out." Chen Yan blew out the candles, still not having time to react. "Auntie, do you want to stay here?" "Bingo." Shin Shishue looked at me cutely. "Sister, can you take me in?" "Who is your sister?" "Get out." Chen Yan bristled. I thought of the system's electric shock words and felt a little reluctant. "If you really have no place to go, then stay here for the night." Shin Shishue was stunned, as if she didn't expect me to agree, happily nodding repeatedly. The three of them shared the cake, the system sound still ringing frequently. "It seems like she's a bug. I can't figure it out at all." Host, although there is no need to go into the plot now, you should not be too close to them, or else what will happen in the future? Hick, host is so fierce. Shin Shishue grinned and took the cake. Chen Yan seemed to have no compatible horoscope with her. The two argued from the dining table down to the study table. "Oh my god, such a simple problem and you got it wrong?" Chen Yan was furious. "What does it have to do with you?" As the female lead, Shin Shishue was of course an all-round excellent student. She picked up a piece of paper. "Who wrote this?" "It's so beautiful." Chen Yan, "My sister wrote it." "Put it down quickly." Shin Shishue, "She wrote the solution for you?" "Your sister is much smarter than you." Chen Yan rarely didn't refute. Ever since she started school, she couldn't understand how I could leave her behind by 18 streets just by studying on my own. Before I crossed over to the book, I was the top student of class 985. 985, a project of key universities in China. There were only 2 bedrooms in the house. Chen Yan disliked Shin Shishue, but she refused to let her sleep with me. She was also afraid that her things would be damaged if she slept alone. After thinking about it for a while, she finally had to endure it and carry the blanket back to her room. I slept a dreamless night, and Chen Yan left the room with dark circles under her eyes. During breakfast, the two of them almost got into a fight over a piece of fried egg. I tried to stop them until my head hurt. Could this be the special magnetic field of the female lead and the villain? It wasn't until the two of them went to school that my head finally calmed down a bit. Then I received a phone call from the Shin family, telling me to come to a certain restaurant at 2 p.m. The commanding tone was so hateful, I directly blacklisted their phone number. As a result, they came straight to my door. 5 million, get away from my daughter. I looked at the check on the table, falling into silence. The secretary acted like it was public business and said, "This is exactly what the madam said. The madam wants to transfer the young lady to an international school. She can't waste time here." I said indifferently, "I didn't stop her." The secretary looked around and said meaningfully, "Since the young lady has returned, she should receive the best things in the world. Unrelated people will only hinder her future. We've investigated you. If you really want the best for the young lady, then leave her." Want the best for her? As soon as the secretary left, Chen Yan returned. She happily told me, "Sister, do you remember the name Fatty Do? The kid who criticized our shop for being unclean when we were kids. Today he bullied his friends again. I gave him a mouthful of squid, but he didn't dare to fart. The teacher asked him and he said he wanted to taste what squid tasted like. I laughed so hard." Tran Nian held her stomach and laughed out loud. I asked her again, do you know why she said that? Tran Nian didn't know. I sighed, it's because of yesterday's incident. There were so many people at the school gate, someone must have heard it. This is the benefit of having power and influence, even among students it's no exception. Tran Nian slowly retracted her smile, her expression deadpan. I didn't say anything more. She was a living person, not a character imagined by the author. Her life was her own. I've said before, no matter what she did, I would support her. The Shin family sent a letter, saying that Grandpa Shin was celebrating his 80th birthday, and invited Chen Yan to attend. After all, he was my grandfather, so Chen Yan agreed to go. The invitation was delivered by Shin Shishue. She seemed to really like coming here, except when she had to go through the plot. This energetic and lively little girl was quite cute. Fortunately, Chen Yan didn't like going to the Shin family's main house, so it wasn't too much trouble. Shin Shishue argued with Chen Yan again, and I rubbed my eyes, listening to the system chatting with Shin Shishue intermittently. Host, you have to prepare well. Don't, if the plot freezes, you will be punished. Impossible, he will definitely appear. This is an important plot in the story, it cannot be changed by any external force. A few sentences had no beginning or end, but I heard two things. An important character will appear in the birthday party, related to both girls. Shin Shishue has to go through the plot, tearing faces with Chen Yan. I looked at Shin Shishue smiling and teasing Chen Yan, feeling extremely helpless. Even if the female lead and supporting characters don't want to compete with each other, can't the ending still be changed? The birthday party arrived very quickly. Chen Yan was wearing a simple outfit, not wearing the secretary's formal dress. Shin Shishue looked at her and assessed her, stroking her chin. This is not mentioned in the story, the system said. So Shin Shishue also wore a simple outfit, even on the hem of her shirt was a watermelon stain that she had dropped earlier. The three of us had just entered the door and immediately became the center of everyone's attention. Madam Shin frowned, lecturing Shin Shishue, why did you drag your younger sister along to do bad things? Shin Shishue coldly laughed. Who is the younger sister? Madam Shin, please pay attention to your choice of words. There, it started again. Chen Yan was still very dissatisfied with Madam Shin's ignoring me the other day. As soon as she lifted her foot, it was like a magnet sticking to my left side. Shin Shishue was facing Madam Shin while sticking to my right side. I was like a piece of filling sandwiched between cookies, being glared at by Madam Shin gloomily. Beside Grandpa Shin was a little radish, it was the child who was pushed down the stairs by the real daughter in the story. Sister, the little boy ran like the wind in front of Shin Shishue. This radish was set to be very loyal to the female lead. The two sisters happily chatted with each other, the system called out in a row. This was originally the most exciting part, the real daughter would be jealous at this moment. But I turned my head to look at Chen Yan, she was anxiously helping me block Madam Shin's gaze. Sister, you have to follow me closely, why do I keep feeling like she has no good intentions? I guess that the system was probably squatting in the toilet crying hoo-hoo. Halfway through the banquet, Grandpa Shin tapped the cane in his hand. I want to take this opportunity today to announce something. A handsome young man wearing a suit and leather shoes stepped forward. I immediately realized who the important person the system was referring to was. Di Zhou will be engaged to my granddaughter Shin Shishue. There will be an engagement party in a few days. I hope you can attend. This is the male lead. Madam Shin grabbed Chen Yan with one hand and pushed her to the middle of the banquet. Chen Yan was terrified and faced the handsome young man. I don't agree. The handsome young man was as calm as water, looking at Shin Shishue affectionately. She is my only fiancé. Chen Yan's expression was extremely ugly, pointing at the handsome young man. Stop it, what are you guys doing? Shin Shishue trembled, not saying a word. As for me, I simply didn't know what to say, anxiously looking at Shin Shishue. How should I say it? The scene was now as chaotic as a stew pot. The crowd turned their eyes to gossip. The fiancé who was supposed to be hers was infatuated with a fake, slapping her in the face in front of everyone. The real daughter became a laughingstock for everyone at the party. Therefore, she completely turned dark, using all means to steal the male lead, entangled with the female lead for hundreds of thousands of words, and was finally abandoned by everyone, dying with hatred. This was originally Chen Ya's ending, not Chen Mian's. Chen Mian looked around. She looked like a bamboo stick in a castle filled with gold and silver. A week ago, I just found out about my identity. She slowly said, Mrs. Shin, you called me 10 times a day to come home. Let me ask you, what have you been doing for the past 10 years? Why did you lose me in the past? When I went to the Shin family, you looked agitated, but why was there half-drunk flower tea on the table? Today, Grandpa Shin didn't even say a word to me and he arbitrarily decided my marriage. Everyone was listening to the gossip. Madame Shin's face turned pale from being talked about. Di Zhou is so outstanding. Oh, this voice belonged to Shin Shishue. Do you know why I'm standing here today? Because I thought I could meet my father who has never shown himself. The little girl's eyes were filled with disappointment, then she felt very comfortable. It seems like I was just hallucinating. Just a daughter, how could she be more important than his career? Shin Shishue continued. I saw Shin Shishue's drooping hand tremble violently. But the male lead who claimed to be affectionate from the beginning to the end did not notice at all. Dick. Master, hurry. No. You. Hurry. The system's sound was intermittent. Shin Shishue lowered her head more and more, trying to hide her pale face. She was still stubborn until now. Rather than accept punishment than bow her head and accept her fate. I was so worried that sweat was dripping down my forehead, not knowing how to help her. Suddenly, a thought flashed through my mind. But his career won't last long. I suddenly spoke, attracting everyone's gaze. I suppressed the fear in my heart, clearly saying each word. The bottom algorithm in Shin Corporation's technology has a huge flaw. It will be cracked by Chonglin Corporation's technology in a few months. Shin Corporation went bankrupt, all assets were sealed. Chairman Shin was so angry that he had a heart attack. Ding. No, the system's voice became even more chaotic. Shin Shishue's body trembled even more. Madame Shin sold all her jewelry and assets to finally raise enough money for the surgery. The system's voice only became a static sound. The surgery cost is, a sharp sound rang out. My heart beat even faster. Success or failure depended on this moment. 1.25 million. The world was completely silent. Shin Shishue fell weakly to the ground. Chen Mian immediately ran over to support her, and found her face as pale as paper, her breathing weak. What's wrong with you? Shin Shishue was still trembling. She smiled at me, shakingly raising her thumb. Actually, it was also because I suddenly thought of the system's words. This is an important plot in the story. It cannot be changed by any external force. If external forces cannot be changed, then what about internal forces? I took advantage of a fatal weakness of every novel, plot revelation. Keeping the plot a secret for the system is related to life. Once the plot is revealed, it will have to rebuild another plot, and erase this bug. There are so many NPCs here, not to mention the male lead, female lead, and even the female supporting characters. Once overloaded, the system will burn itself out. The truth proves, I won. There are so many NPCs here, not to mention the male lead, female lead, and even the female supporting characters. Once overloaded, the system will burn itself out. The truth is, I won. That day, the three of us left everyone behind. Madame Shin refused to let her go, and Shin Shishue's little radish made a ruckus, crying and rolling around at the door, refusing to let her go. The real daughter and the fake daughter refused to acknowledge their relatives, and even their own son wouldn't come out to help. After today, the Shin family would probably become a laughingstock for the entire wealthy world. In the taxi, Shin Shishue had calmed down. Chen Yan asked me, were the words I said just now true? Shin Shishue and I glanced at each other, not saying anything. Although I didn't know the specifics, I could roughly guess that it was probably because I created a new bug to help her escape the plot. Moreover, as a smart, rational young woman, who would want to become the main character of this kind of dirty story? I was just joking, they behaved like that, so I cursed them a few times, to vent my anger for you. Chen Yan happily rubbed against my neck. I laughed too. I didn't say anything in detail just now. The secret of the Shin group was revealed by the real daughter. She even ran to the hospital, intending to sabotage the surgery. It was the fake daughter who stopped her, and it took all her efforts to resolve it. Regardless of appearance, personality, ability, or even the degree of popularity among the opposite sex, the two girls were compared by them. Afterwards, the Shin couple, with the help of the fake daughter, overcame difficulties, realized who was good and who was bad, and finally abandoned the real daughter, holding a century-old wedding for the fake daughter and the male lead. These bloody plot twists! Fortunately, neither of them got involved. Instead, they chose to take a smoother path. When they got home, Shin Shishue was already able to walk. Wow, the air is so fresh. Shin Shishue spread her arms, her expression full of enjoyment. Crazy girl. Chen Yan rolled her eyes, leading the way into the house first. What do you plan to do in the future? Tam tried to I haven't thought about it yet. I'll take one step at a time. If I have the chance I will repay you for this kindness. The little girl lowered her hand, as free as when they first met. Why did you go in alone? Chen Yan was stunned. Or else. You didn't tell Shin Shishue. Tell what? Tell her to come in? To stay at our house? Chen Yan was puzzled, but finally asked, didn't you feel sorry for him? Just now, you were talking about living in such a difficult environment? Chen Yan muttered, so it turns out that their whole family is not normal. No wonder he doesn't like staying at home. I really feel sorry for her, but you are more important. Chen Yan was stunned. I said, in my heart, you are the most important. So even if I sympathize with her, I still won't take her in, let her become a part of our family without your consent. A trace of tears appeared in Chen Yan's eyes, and she turned her head and said firmly, who wants him to become a part of our family? I tilted my head. Just now, when you asked me why I didn't tell her to come in, wasn't that what you meant? Chen Yan's ears were red. She was silent for a long time before saying, last time he slept in my room, said something about insomnia, then turned on the study light, and did all the homework for me. Because I was usually quite busy, so for the homework that I didn't know how to do, Chen Yan would collect it, waiting for me to teach her all at once. But this time I was busier than usual. Perhaps Chen Yan had collected quite a few. He did, quite well. Me. And today, he also didn't like that fake son. When I refuted Madame Shin, he also helped me. He's also sick. The calmer I acted, the more impatient she became. Well, then tell him to come in, I'm not that stingy. I held back my laughter. You're getting better and better, huh? You dare to order me around. If you want to say something, then say it yourself. Seeing Chen Yan stumbling out the door, I finally couldn't help but hold my stomach and laugh. After that, there were days of chaos. Shin Shishue, I'll kill you. As soon as I entered the door, I heard Chen Yan roar angrily, that's the dumplings my sister left for me. Who gave you permission to eat them? Shin Shishue disdained, nonsense, that's what my sister left for me. Who's your sister? Don't call me that. Shin Jishue ran up behind me, pitifully saying, "Sister, look at that, Chen Yan is so fierce. His ranking can't even reach 100, but he's so fierce, how can he be as good as me? Sister, can you leave me some delicious food in the future?" Chen Yan's face was twisted. Out of 3 people in the family, 2 were good students. Chen Yan was teased by Shin Jishue all day long, and finally, from 300 to 400, he had gone up to 100. But unfortunately, in this test, Shin Jishue was first, and Chen Yan was 101st. I helplessly watched the 2 of them run around me. "Sis, this is my competition scholarship." Shin Jishue looked at Chen Yan complacently. "I also bought you a neck massager. Happy birthday." The cake was personally made by Chen Yan. I felt that if this wasn't my birthday cake, Chen Yan would have already smashed it on Shin Jishue's face. 3 candles were lit. I closed my eyes and made a wish. "Ah, you stepped on me. Who told you to stretch your legs so far?" "Chen Yan, are you tired of living?" These words were originally used when the female lead was piking to the death with the female supporting character. But now everything was peaceful. The 2 girls argued loudly all day long, even competing for favor with each other. The family was warm and happy. In the flickering candlelight, I wished, from now on, grudges would leave the 3 of us, so that we could live a happy, peaceful life. 100 years later, I grew old and died. Opening my eyes again, what hit me was the long-lost desktop computer. I was stunned for a long time before I could digest the fact that I had traveled back. I moved the mouse, the computer screen lit up. It was a Word file. That's right, I almost forgot. I was the unlucky author whose work was plagiarized. I didn't remember the part where the male lead went on stage. I only remembered the 1.25 million because I discovered that person plagiarized at this part. I always saved all my manuscripts before posting, and only one of my friends could read these manuscripts. Reaching out, I contacted a lawyer. I wanted to fight him to the end. I put down the phone in my hand, then looked at the hundreds of thousands of words on the screen in a daze. I tried to follow the trend, writing a story about real and fake rich girls. But it's not as exaggerated as that plagiarized book. The real daughter doesn't harm anyone, the fake daughter doesn't force her to die, it's just a normal story where the female lead defeats evil. Maybe it's not cool enough, so it was rewritten in a different way. I strangely put my hand on the keyboard, closed this file, and opened another one. Luckily, I only announced the summary. There's still time. I have to write a different ending for those 2 girls. Side story. My name is Tam Tri-Tuet. I'm an unlucky person who was hit by a drunk driver while waiting to cross the street. While waiting for the green light, I opened a story reading app to kill time. It's a refreshing story about a real fake daughter. After reading the summary, I scrolled down to the review section. It's so bullshit. I didn't expect that I would actually transmigrate into that book, and even become the female lead. The system kept on nagging me to summarize the plot. 3 days later, the real daughter will be found. Don't you think this logic is really shit? You've already taken someone else's things and you still want to stand on the pinnacle of morality to overthrow her? I couldn't imagine it. System, host, she's an evil female supporting character. If you don't do anything to her, she'll do something to you. In her previous life, Shin Jishue died tragically because she couldn't defeat the evil female supporting character. But what the hell does that have to do with me? If she returned to her rightful place and didn't force people into a corner, how could the 2 of them be so stubborn that they couldn't stop until they died? I shook my head. Thank you very much for keeping an eye on me, but please find someone else. The system still wouldn't let me go, and even said that if I didn't follow the plot, I would be punished. A person who had died once would still be afraid of these punishments? After that, I was really scared. For 3 consecutive days, I planned to run away. and even tactfully erased all traces of me in this house. But as soon as I stepped out of the Shin family's main house, an electric current would strike me. Perhaps my death was too sudden, so the feeling of being electrocuted was really unpleasant. So I stayed in the house for 3 days, waiting for the real daughter to appear. I tried once more to escape this brain-dead plot, but still failed. He called me back, told me not to go. I was also considered the lord of the romance world. Upon hearing that, countless tricks of the average evil female supporting character immediately appeared in my mind. I was mentally prepared to turn back, just hoping to be able to retreat in one piece. But he seemed not to be like what I imagined. He did not come alone but with someone else. Because Dong's mother treated her unfairly, making the real daughter angry, she pulled that person's hand and walked away without looking back, completely ignoring her biological mother and the many years of wealth that she should have received. I felt it was new, even felt that he was very cool. Because I was also not used to seeing Dong's mother's way of hating the poor and loving the rich. Having been in this house for 3 days, I had understood everyone from the master to the servants in the Tam family. So I helped her vent her anger. System, have you passed the level yet? It can be considered a contradiction. What's wrong with him? Why isn't it like the script at all? System, I don't know either. Let me see what kind of love tricks this supporting female character will do again. Host, what are you planning to do? I glanced at Madame Shin, who was standing at the door, not knowing what she was thinking. I want to go find him. My intuition tells me he's very likely the key to helping me escape from these shackles. I went to find the two of them, and they were indeed celebrating their birthday. What a coincidence, today was also my birthday. I had thought that after I died, eating birthday cake on this day would become a thing of the past. So I shamelessly walked to the dining table, originally just casually asking. But I didn't expect that the person the real rich girl called sister would actually let me stay overnight. Host, don't be too close to them, or what will happen later? Shut up, it's not about the plot now, I can do whatever I want. After the three of them divided the cake, Chen Yan's sister gave him a phone, a very beautiful phone. There was a chibi picture of Chen Yan hanging on it. I touched my pocket, there was only a mint candy, so I conveniently stuffed it into Chen Yan's bag. Then I silently ate the cake, watching Chen Yan happily kiss my sister. I looked at the shaking keychain. I felt a little envious. After finishing the meal, I had a general understanding of the two people's situation. This girl named Yun Xiu was not simple at all, she could actually change the personality of a real rich girl. Chen Yan had no cunning intentions, perhaps until now he still hadn't realized. I was the cuckoo who had occupied his rich and noble nest for the past 17 years. For some reason, my attention fell on Yun Xiu. That night, I slept in the same room as Chen Yan. Looking at his side face, I felt annoyed with this easy-to-deceive person. After thinking for a while, I immediately thought of the old story the two of them talked about at the dinner table. When he was young, Tran Nian suffered a lot. I don't know the specific details, but I can imagine it quite well. If he hadn't met Van Tu, he would have had to continue to suffer for many more years before he could become the evil female supporting character. There's no way he could be like this now, not angry, not resentful towards me. And even let the fake rich girl, me, sleep over. My heart skipped a beat. I read the summary, feeling that this book is the kind of brainless story. The good people are good to the West, and the bad people are bad to the point of absurdity. I had always said that I had nothing to do with their grudges, and that I had come here just to fulfill my dream of freedom. But at this moment, looking at the lives of the two of them, who were dependent on each other, although not rich, they were happy. I suddenly understood. If I wanted to continue living, I had to accept everything that this identity brought. The more I thought about it, the more I couldn't sleep. I resolutely sat up. I didn't like being indifferent to others. Since the two sisters were so kind as to take me in, I would help Trannian solve all these exercises. Trannian's temperament was exactly like the grumpy cat I had raised before. She would bristle at the slightest touch. Van too was an extremely gentle person, and would look at me and smile helplessly. I liked this kind of atmosphere, it was very warm. It also reduced my feeling of loneliness in another world quite a bit. But I still had to go through that damn plot. Every time I returned to the Tam family, Mrs. Tam would scold me and put all the blame on me. After that, I cried and was moved, but I refused to go find Trannian. Oh, this is my biological mother. I was bored to death, compared to living in this huge villa. I liked that small house with only 2 bedrooms more. The system told me the plot of the story was coming. The male lead in this book is mentally retarded. As long as the female supporting character uses some tricks, he will have a conflict with the female lead, then chase his wife to the cremation ground, and then have a happy ending with the female lead. Ugh, don't touch me. Host, you have to prepare well. Prepare what the hell? I don't want to have anything to do with that retard. Don't, if the plot freezes, you will be punished. Too annoying, can't he go out and get hit by a car, and be hospitalized for a year or 2? No way, he will definitely appear. This is an important plot in the story, it cannot be changed by any external force. On the day of the birthday party, I prepared myself mentally before going to find Trannian and the other 2. No matter what happens today, I will obey my heart. As soon as Grandpa Tam opened his mouth, he engaged Trannian to the male lead. I objected without thinking. In the plot that the system gave me, after the female supporting character committed all kinds of evil deeds, she was personally thrown into prison by the male lead, and then tortured to death. Putting Chen Yan's face into this situation, my brain started to ache again. Chen Yan should stay far away from that idiot. The electric shock had never been so strong. I thought optimistically, now that I could still stand, I really had some resistance. Chen Yan condemned the Shin family's way of doing things sentence by sentence. Especially the sentence, "Why did you lose me before?" shocked me. It was as if a real rich girl should be happy to be back in the rich family. But no real rich girl asked the source of this happiness. Why did you lose me before? And after I had struggled to grow up, you came and only said sorry, then forced me to acknowledge my ancestors. Benefits are not the only criteria to measure right and wrong. Grandpa and Grandma didn't leave at all, why should I treat them as if they had raised me for so many years? Chen Yan was just naive, he didn't think as much as I did, but he was brave. He could have easily given up this bright future. How could I shamelessly become an obstacle in his path? Plot, fighting over something. Go away! In order to prevent me from disturbing the real world, the electric shock went straight to my spirit. I felt like my soul was trembling. I heard that the curse of a dying person is the most effective. Chen Yan, oh Chen Yan, you must have a smooth path. Before I could finish cursing, Yun Xiu had already made a move. My intuition was indeed correct, she actually used the most unexpected method to help me solve this trouble. Trannian and I, the real rich girl and the fake rich girl. We were finally free. I wandered the streets, the world was vast, I still hadn't thought of where to go to find a new place to live. Then Trannian caught up. He stared at me, his expression extremely rich, his lips moved for a while before he choked out a sentence. You won't come back with me? I chuckled. The sunlight followed the treetops, rolled down, and fell on us. That girl. She really has her own beauty. End.